I have to admit that this is one of the most puzzling music video and song I have ever come across with, K-pop or non-K-pop. At first, I thought, was he just trying to think of how weird he could get in a music video and then just decided to go for it? But then, if there's also something consistent and something that we know is natural of RM when it comes to his music or his art, it's just he has depth, and there is always this spectrum. There is always so much you can take that I feel like if you go for the easiest route, it feels like it's an injustice to his music video. So I can't just relegate this to him wanting to become weird. So I can't claim that my interpretation is correct, but at least I can claim that I did exactly what he has always encouraged us to do, and that is to think. So I don't know if I'm right with my interpretation, but at least I would like to think that I'm contributing to this conversation that I'm sure he would appreciate, because it centers not just around his art, but on the message of his art. So if you do end up liking this video, please give it a thumbs up, and of course subscribe and hit that notification button so that you don't miss a single video, and share the video if you can. Thank you. Now on to the video. Inside RM's brain. Right around the 10th time I was watching the music video, I realized I missed something very important. So important that I think it actually sort of explains the whole music video. It's the very first scene, the scene that says RM's brain. I think the whole music video is him allowing us to explore snippets of his thoughts formed through or because of his experiences, readings, and desires. It's especially important to note that he used his real name, Namjoon, which is another clue that this is his thought, not the thought of the character that he created for the music video. Right after the two news anchors introduced him to perform, we can immediately see he was seeing things from different perspectives. From the perspective of a performer, perspective of a production crew, and the perspective of the media before he ascended to his own mind and through a series of trippy moments. And a trip to somebody's brain is not for everybody. Certainly not for those who can only live in succinct clarity. It felt as though this is the chaos he lives in or lives with, the chaos he thrives in, and the chaos he shapes into some form of consumable art for us. In other words, he wasn't just creating art and then presenting it to us. He was actually allowing us inside the quote-unquote machine that he uses to create those art pieces. Fragments of his thoughts and self rather than a story. Inside the elevator, when he first blurted out the line, "I'm goddamn lost," we can see everyone wearing the RM tag, possibly indicating that everything and everyone in this space is actually him, some sort of different personas. As he walks inside the maze of his mind, we see different RMs doing different things. He was walking with other people, but also tending to his plant, but also writing. This is all the sides of him he has shared to armies. Unlike many of his past music videos, however, Lost doesn't seem to have a narrative, linear or otherwise, because things were just so random. In one scene, it's several RMs in one screen. Then it suddenly shifts to him walking on a rotating floor before resuming his walk, while there is a tight shot of his face that's dominating the foreground. But while it has no progressive narrative, each scene is chunky with possible meanings, and I am going to talk about some of them in a minute. He is everywhere and he is everyone, but still lost. I think RM nailed it. He is everyone in that video and he is everywhere. And he was still, like the title said, lost. Left, right, and center, it's him. He was the creator, he's the performer, he's the one thinking, and he was the one executing. He was inside and he was also outside. And yet, he still couldn't find his way and didn't even know what way he was searching for. He was everyone to anyone everywhere, and he still didn't know where he was headed. It's just like many of us sometimes. We are someone to a lot of people, but sometimes we don't know who we are to us. Shifting between telling a story and then asking questions. The lyrics are just as fragmented as the music video. He would constantly shift from telling a story to questioning the story and then back again. In the first verse, he says, "Take it for the love like oh." But then he asks, "How'd you get lost?" Even in the chorus, he expresses a thought and then shifts to performing an action. He says, "I'm goddamn lost. I've never been to a club before." But then he proceeds to tell us, "I hit the club," before mentioning how he felt again. "I never felt so free before." This actually solidified my impression that the song and the music video weren't really meant to tell a story, but more to express fragmented thoughts. Not only that, he isn't consistent with his tone either. The song isn't angry or sad or any kind of emotion all throughout. It keeps on changing. In verse 1, he was protective and reassuring. He said, "Thank you, don't worry." Then he shifts to being vulnerable. "I come to my senses and suddenly I'm on an empty street." And then he was nostalgic. "Time flies. 14 years old, he already is 30." And then he's hopeful. "And I look up at the sky and I see silver cloud." He jumps from one emotion to another. He jumps from one thought to another. Irregular perspectives. Right from the get-go, RM introduced an abnormal perspective. The maze where he initially appeared had this weirdly tilted position, but it was the most normal of a perspective we will ever get for the entirety of the music video. Because when the elevator opened, we could see them all tilted to one side, while the actual elevator was actually in normal position. And then a zoom out of the room where we would actually see the entirety of the maze. We see that the RM positioned farther appeared bigger and the ones closer are actually smaller. The shot in the hallway also showed everyone else leaning to one side, standing on an even floor. There is, of course, so much to read in that distortion of perspective. It could be how the world has such a screwed up perspective on who he is, or it could just be about the screwed up positions we are in this even more screwed up world. But we do have to remember that we are actually inside his brain. So this is actually his perspective. This is not the outside looking in, it's actually him inside his mind. This is the weirdly entertaining and slightly scary maze in his head, and that makes it all the more interesting because he sees how it's him that has to live tilted against this regimented world. This has been him trying to survive the first 3 decades of his life. Always tilted, but still alive. The exit was an entrance. The goal was to exit the maze, and he could clearly see the signs, but couldn't make it out for the longest time. He was either trapped in a corner, or on a dead end, or on the edge of nothingness. When he did finally make it out, he only found himself trapped in another maze. The maze of the public, with its own corresponding expectations and absurdity. This could actually explain the stoic expression on his face when he finally faces the public to perform. Because while he tried so much to finally get out of the maze he was in, the maze of his own mind, all he did was actually enter another maze. But this time, the maze that was created by somebody else. The public constantly watching him. "I got temptation." What is this confusing line? This is actually one of the hardest lines to figure out. If you look at it in the context of the lyrics, it seems he has been struggling with lifelessness, loneliness, and sickness. It doesn't feel like temptation would actually weave in clearly to this set of emotions. But if we look at all the elements, sonic and visual, it's easy to notice how RM actually established monotony. He was wearing the same clothing throughout the video. each persona was actually wearing the same clothing. He was doing the most mundane of things, from doing paperwork to distributing office mail. Temptation could be his desire to rebel. But then he also made sure to emphasize that he has never felt more free before than he did when he hit the club. And also, this is RM we're talking about. I don't think he is capable of writing something simple. I got temptation in this context could also mean he has conquered temptation. Two thoughts from either side of the spectrum. But I wouldn't put it past Namjoon. He could mean either, or he could mean both. That he has temptation in his hand, but it's never controlling him, because he's got it now. Feeling above understanding. RM can articulate his thoughts into melodies, lyrics, and visuals. He could have, had he wanted, laid the narrative down very, very clearly. The mere fact that it's more blurry and scattered, I would like to think means he meant it to be that way. After all, the entire album feels like it was more about his story than it is about a common sentiment that he wanted to share to armies. So maybe this song is just about us listening to him more than we should be understanding him. Maybe it's an exercise in the realities of connecting with people rather than it is about just connecting with him. Maybe this is just him wanting us to realize that you don't need to understand everything all the time. What is more valuable is the connection. If you could accept beyond understanding, you will find what real human connection means. One thing though is that I feel like this is a part of a bigger narrative. I think the only time we will only be able to fully appreciate, or at least better understand what he means by this music video, is if when we actually see the other music videos. I think when he created this album, he had a complete narrative, and it's important for us to go through each of the steps for us to be able to fully understand the entire message. So I think it's better, maybe it warrants another video once the other three are out. The last point isn't really about the music video or the song per se. It's more about the implications of the album and the music videos that RM has so far released. I think for if you're a management company or a label or a producer wanting to make money, this is not the kind of album that you would release. I know it's not going to land well on a lot of people, but it's true because it's not K-pop. It's not even pop. It is really different. There's a conscious effort, I think, to fuse different genre in each song, but there's also a conscious effort to transition from one song to another that if you're not paying attention, you could actually get lost as to what song is already playing. This is not the kind that the general public would consume. So it only speaks of the sincerity and the honesty of Bang Chi-yuk when he said that at this stage he's not really expecting or wanting anything from BTS, but for BTS to continue loving music, enjoying music, and for them to every now and then come together and just talk about art and just talk about music. I think he's sincere and he's honest because, as I've said, this is not the kind of album that you would release if you want to make money. But the other aspect of it, the other side of it, is armies. I think armies are getting a lot of flack for not getting this much sales or not pushing it to this high in the chart. But the truth is that for armies to still be for the album to still sell over 500,000 in the first day, for it to still enter iTunes in like 70 countries or something, it only goes to prove, it shows the commitment of armies to RM and to the rest of BTS, that they are willing, because I know a lot of armies don't understand the songs, don't understand the albums. A lot of armies aren't even into this kind of genres, but they're supporting it. And I think it's because they are serious when they said they want to be able to just support BTS in whatever path they want to take, and also help in pushing the envelope, pushing the limits of what pop can really do, because they are elevating pop, not just K-pop, but pop in general. They are elevating pop, and I think this is ARMY's way of contributing towards that cause. And then the last is that I think RM himself is trying to shed his pop persona. I think he's really looking beyond being a K-pop idol, his career as a K-pop idol, and really looking into what else he can offer. And I think it has to be commended because it's risky. I've seen like maybe 2-3 publications already, good publications that have released reviews that seem lost because they themselves don't understand what RM is doing. But he's brave, and it's even more impressive that he is brave to show off his brains. Because stupidity sells a lot in this business, and he's just going the other way. All right, I don't know if I hope I contributed something. As I've said, this is really hard to like really digest, but I did my best because I really want to contribute to this progressive conversation about his music and about art, and of course the actual message that he's trying to deliver. I would love to hear your thoughts. Please leave them in the comment section. You can say whatever it is that you want to say. Just please be respectful. Of course, like, subscribe, and hit that notification button so that you don't miss a single video. And share the video if you can. It's really helping my channel. Oh, I crossed 30,000. Yay. Okay. Also, follow me on Patreon. I upload a lot more content there, and I'm a little bit more spontaneous there. And then also follow me on X or on Twitter and on Instagram. I think by next week I'll be able to share some of the projects that I am doing that I hope will excite you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.